according to the retail price index, inflation has hit 11.8%. Now, most outlets use the CPI, which is the consumer price index, which is a much more conservative estimate of 9.4%. RPI takes into account housing costs, which is most people's income, so it's a much more accurate reflection. Now, this is Philip Janssen. He is the CEO of BT. Fortunately for him, he was able to give himself a pay rise of 32%. He now earns £3.5 million per year. British gas owner Centrica increased their profits by £262 million in the last 6 months, totaling £1.34 billion. British Petroleum, also known as BP, made £6.9 billion in profits just this quarter. At the same time, workers haven't had a pay rise for decades and will be taking a huge pay cut this year due to the astronomical increase in inflation. So, is it time for a general strike? Is one brewing? Now, disclosure, I 100% support a general strike. Why? Have a look at this data. What you can see is a flat line of wages since 2008. This graphic looks incredibly similar to graphs from the US, in which there's a decoupling of wages from productivity since the 70s. Now, in the context of the UK, weekly earnings should be around £600 per week had things stayed the same since 2008. But of course, in 2008, we had the economic crisis. I like to call it the banker's assault on the working class, and wages have essentially stayed the same. Now, this data is from the end of last year, so it doesn't take into account inflation from this year, but it provides the broader context as to how wages have been declining for a long time, and we haven't had the sort of politics that wants to deal with any of this. Now, instead, we have Liz Truss desperately trying to woo her Conservative counterparts and membership by ramping up aggressive attacks on unions. Keir Starmer is also taking the side of capital, sacking Sam Tarry for showing solidarity with strikers, refusing to say whether the party supports wage increases that keeps up with inflation. Now, any increase in wages that doesn't match or exceed inflation is completely unacceptable. But I come back to the question, is a general strike looming? Well, Dave Ward from the CEW had this to say on Novara Media.
I would support forms of collective action, and I can say to you that there's a number of us that are now talking about that, and also talking about the practical steps that might lead to that, because, you know, I'm a big believer in there's no point in saying them things if you haven't got a plan to deliver it. And I think the next stage of the discussions that we're having at the moment is to set out how that plan could reach workers across the UK and what the demands would be. We're definitely up for it in the CWU. There's no doubt about that. We've actually led the campaign for a New Deal for Workers, and that's been about rebuilding trade union power.
Now, he doesn't literally say, we support a general strike, but that is essentially what he said. Now, other union leaders such as Sharon Graham and Mitt Lynch from Unite and RMT respectively have had discussions to try and coordinate a sort of mass petition from workers. Now, without sounding too optimistic, it genuinely feels like there is something in the air. People really have had enough, and people are realising the situation is just not acceptable. Now, 58% of people think the strikes are justified. This is a poll from the end of June from Savanta Comres. 34% think it's unjustified. So that's a gap of 24%. So it's very clear where the public mood is at. Now, a general strike is really important because it can shift power away from the owner class. This is significant since there are millions of workers who are currently not in a union, and there's no political party, no set of policies proposed from prominent politicians to address the wage crisis. Now, right now, unions are targeting specific areas of the economy, and obviously these certain unions are very strong. But a general strike can really leverage all workers across the country. Now, it is a risk. Non-unionised workers participating in strike action, withdrawing their labour, will risk their jobs and, they can be fired. But in all instances, I suppose, when there's positive change or when positive change can happen, I guess there's always some kind of risk. Now, something that can coincide with this risk is the Don't Pay campaign. If you haven't seen it, there is a campaign to collectively persuade people to not pay their energy bills on the 1st of October. Now, this is their website. They are calling for a reduction in bills to an affordable level, and if that isn't done, people are encouraged to cancel their direct debits. Given the fact that it's highly unlikely you will be shut off from your energy supplier, for missing or cancelling one payment, then you might as well fucking do it. Now, of course, there is a caveat. Some companies will charge more if you move away from direct debit. I bring this up because if you withdraw your labour, if you lose your income, then this is a way in which you can recover some sort or some portion of your income. Now, I know this seems a bit bleak, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee you'll get fired for withdrawing your labour, but the hope is that if there is a general strike and you decide not to turn up to work without a union, the power is really in the hands of workers. A general strike will scare the shit out of your employer, and it's something we need to get behind. Direct action works. It worked with the poll tax, and besides, there isn't really a choice, is there? No political representation. The working class have been getting poorer for decades. The media class are telling us to make hard decisions, to just take it. Whilst corporations, CEOs, are making disgusting profits in the face of everything. My suggestion, talk to your co-workers. Work out your grievances, discuss commonality, discuss the burning injustice of what's going on, and organise.